Hello, friends. Welcome. Today, we're going to be making an art project about grief, processing your grief. Maybe you've had some grief about an experience you've had that was uncomfortable. Um, Maybe it's over a person or a pet. We're going to be basing this artwork off of a wonderful book called Tear Soup. And it talks about how everyone's grief is so personal and different. It also has in it how you could help someone who's grieving. So we'll definitely be going over that if you're just close to someone who might be through a grief process and how you can help them. But this is a great book. We're going to be making our own bowl of tear soup today. So let's grab our art supplies and get started. Okay, I'm choosing to do this in watercolor. So if you're doing it like me, you're gonna want watercolors, watercolor brushes, a cup of water, a spray bottle of water to wet your paints, watercolor paper, and colored pencils. But you could also make this with markers, just colored pencils and crayons. So do with what you got. So first I'm gonna spray my paints just to wake them up. So mine have already been sprayed for a little while. I did that earlier and they're ready to go. I'm using a round brush. Let's see, I think it's a number 12 round brush, but you can really use whatever you've got. We're going to be starting by making all the ingredients that are going to go within our soup. And I decided I wanted, like, what kind of soup am I making? I think I'm going to be making kind of like a ramen soup or a chicken ramen soup because that's the bowl I think I'm going to try to make today. So I'm going to do some green. Let's imagine it's like green onion or seaweed or whatever. And you really want to scribble this all over the paper. That's why, honestly, you could do this in crayon or marker or whatever. I like using watercolor. I find it just really relaxing to use, but honestly, you can use anything that you like. I'm going to choose this green. This is sap green. If you're wanting to go the same as me, it's kind of like a grassy green. So we're going to start with that one. And you want to get as much of the paper kind of covered. I'm going to just use a piece of paper and reuse it a little later. And then I'm going to add in some yellow. This is, what color is that? Is that Anzo yellow? No, that's New Gambage. So I'm going to be using that color next and just kind of getting it all in there. Let's imagine that that's like, I don't know, carrots. We're going to imagine it's some kind of vegetable that we're putting in there. And you want some kind of bright colors. And then I'm going to add in a brownish shade, I think. And that's going to be whatever, tofu or meat product you're going to be putting in. I don't know what you put in your soup. So kind of pick colors that are reminiscent of a soup that's really comforting to you. I want you to think of like, what is the most comforting bowl of soup? You don't feel good, you're sad, you're upset, whatever. And this bowl of soup is your jam. That's the color you want to go with. So I decided to add some yellow in because the brown by itself looked not appetizing. So I added a little yellow in there just to make it a little bit nicer of a shade. And then I'm going to add a little bit more brown. Let's add some shading in there, add a little more color. And you really, again, you want to add some ingredients that work for you. So whatever colors are your colors. And then I'm going to let this dry. You can either make it dry with a heat gun or you can you can wait for it to dry and just go grab a cup of tea. So your choice. Okay, so my painting is now dry and I'm ready to take my teeny tiny little scissors and chop up into little pieces this painting. So I'm going to write feelings on it later. So I'm definitely going to want to make sure I'm making them. I don't know. I'm kind of not making them quite big enough, but you want to be able to write on them. I didn't mention earlier, you are going to want to have a pen that's like can write rather small. You can honestly just use any pen you've got. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but we're just going to cut these into small pieces. And as we're doing that, we want to start thinking about the feelings that we're feeling during our grief. I'm going to be making this piece based on my grief process over a person. But maybe yours is a pet, maybe yours is an experience. But that's what I'm going to be doing. And there's so many feelings that go into the grief process. We often think when you haven't experienced grief before, you think, oh, grief is sad. You're sad. And there are so many layers to it. It's never, well, okay, maybe for some people it's just sad, but it's very rarely just sad. There's so many other feelings that can happen. And as you're cutting this up, I really want you to imagine all of those feelings. And wouldn't it be great if they just came on when we wanted them to? We were like, oh, I feel like I have time and space for this right now. Great, we can process our feelings. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so keep this piece of paper. We're going to be using it later. I've got all these tiny pieces now, and I'm just going to flip them right side up just so I can see all their colors. And then I'm going to just put them to the side and grab another piece of paper. So I'm going to grab another watercolor paper because I'm doing watercolor, but if you're not, it can just be any kind of drawing paper, whatever you have on hand. It doesn't have to be anything special if you're not. Let me just take some of the glue off of this that's stuck on the side. And then I'm going to be drawing a bowl. Just because I did this earlier and I made the most horrible bowl ever, I'm going to be penciling it in this time just so I can make the shape I want. And I want this to be a ramen bowl. So it's a little bit deep. I'm going to be making this big U shape. And I like to hold my hands, my arms still, and just kind of move from the wrist. And it allows me to make a really smooth curve. But you can also just use like a lid or something to make a bit of that template there. Your choice on how you decide to make it. There's no need for this to be perfect by any means. It's just your process piece. And so if it's not a perfect bowl shape, that's totally fine. Okay, I'm going to be making this ramen bowl. In order for it to be a ramen bowl, it has like this little foot on the bottom. So I'm going to make 2 lines coming down and then another slightly curved line on the bottom. Not as curved, obviously, as that top U. And then I'm going to be going ahead and making the bowl, the inside bowl itself. So I'm looking at the line from one side to the other, so I have an idea of the guide I'm going for. And then I'm just going to make a slightly curved line from one side to the other to make the front of that bowl. I'm going to make it 3D so we see the inside of the bowl. And now I'm going to go for like more of a curve upwards. So a rainbow from one corner to the other so that I've got this kind of, I forget what that shape is called, but like an oval. And then, oh, okay, the shapes don't fit. So I've got to make this just a little bit bigger. So let me curve that a little bit higher up. Okay, and erase that line. Okay, and then I'm going to grab an eraser and I'm going to just start to erase some of these lines because I don't want to have my pencil muddying up my watercolors. So I have this thing, it's a kneadable eraser. You don't need to have one of these. I just like it because it doesn't have all those little rubber bits that come off. And then I just smack the bejesus out of my paper. And by doing that, I get up most of the lead from the pencil. And so it won't get all weird and muddy, but you can barely see it. I know that you can't see it once I do that, but I swear to you, it is actually present. It is on the paper. I can still see those lines, and you'll still be able to see those lines when you just lightly erase them. You can use the back of a pencil or whatever and just lightly erase. Or you could honestly just go straight to your colored pencil, crayon, marker, watercolor. You don't even have to outline it if you don't want to. But for the purpose of showing you, I'm going to outline it this time so you can kind of see the shape. Okay, so here it is. It's very vaguely there. And I'm going to move on to grabbing the paint. So I'm going to grab a blue. This is French ultramarine that I'm going to be grabbing. And I'm grabbing this color because the person I'm thinking of when I'm making this bowl loved blue. Like super loved blue. I mean, the dishes were blue, the walls were blue, the couches were blue, even down to the fine details of the like kitchen like ladle and spatula, just everything was blue. And it's just the color that makes me think of them. And I've had enough time now to process my feelings that making a blue painting that represents this person feels good, feels comfortable. I will say probably in the first few years it didn't. And maybe that wasn't something I was ready to do. For this top part, I'm just gonna kind of half fill it in. So it just looks like it's a little in the distance. I'm not gonna fully fill it in. So they're a little like half lines instead of a full line in the front. And then I'm gonna add just some fun details to this bowl, maybe things that just make me think of them. This person not only loved blue, but loved some Greek culture and also loved Asian food. And so that's why I'm making this ramen bowl, and I'm going to make some little lines and X's, kind of putting in a little Greek culture things that were a love of this person. And you make your bowl with whatever you want. If it's not a person and it's an experience, maybe it's the colors that are that make you just happy. Maybe you don't want the colors of that particular experience, but maybe ones that either make you happy or invoke some of those feelings that were involved in your grief. So you can really do this in a million different ways. Okay, I'm going to grab a darker shade. This is Prussian blue, and I'm going to be making those little details on my bowl. I'm going to start on this side and make these tiny little crosses, these tiny little I don't know what X's. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. They're just details that I wanted to make. Maybe if it was a pet that you lost, you'd want to make it like what their dish was, maybe their food dish. It's up to you, however you want this bowl to look. And I'm going to go every other line. We'll see if that works out Oh, no, it doesn't work out mathematically. Nope, that's okay. I will just end up filling in all of these to make up for that. So no worries. There's, part of art is also problem solving. Things come up and you go, oh, that didn't work out. I will just redo that. It's so good for processing hard feelings, for working through some difficult problems. I've just found art so restorative, and I just hope that by sharing it, maybe you find it restorative too. Okay, so finishing off my last details of my little crosses, and then I'm gonna add in the soup flavor. So now I'm gonna add in this like pop of the soup. What color soup do you want? Maybe your soup is really gonna be dark brown. Maybe your soup is going to be yellow. Maybe your soup is going to be, I don't know, blue. I have no idea what your favorite color soup is, but I'm kind of imagining mine as like a chicken-based soup. So I'm going to be grabbing a little bit of a yellow color. Don't worry the fact that my water is very dirty. I know that you're not supposed to do that, and I still do it. My water is still always dirty, so don't worry about it. When you have soup and it has all these like flecks in it, it's never just kind of one shade. I'm going to grab a little bit of this is gold, quinacridone gold, and I'm just going to add some little dots for it to bloom out and kind of have some texture to it because, why not? It's fun to do. So now my bowl of soup is done. It looks like a delicious bowl of chicken soup. And now I'm going to add in all of the ingredients to your grief soup. So it's now dry. It's ready to go. Okay, so what's in your grief soup? The grief soup is all of your feelings. I'm going to cut these a little bit. They're a little bit big for my bowl. Before I stick these babies on here, this is the time when you're thinking about all those feelings you were thinking about earlier when you were making the bowl. that you're going to be writing them in these little pieces, and it's going to be the ingredients to your soup. You're going to want to be expressing all of those feelings. You're going to want to be having them so you see them, you know what they are, you aren't scared when they come up. So I'm grabbing a glue stick. This is a trusty old glue stick. We've got this purpley one. Do you remember when it was like rubber cement? And that stuff was like so goopy with the little brush that was inside of the jar. That was always fun times. But now we have these like really handy dandy glue sticks. And I like that they're purple because then you know when it dries. Or where it is, like on the back. It's so convenient. And I'm just going to be placing these in random places. I used pretty thick watercolor paper, and I think if I was going to do this again, I probably would use a slightly thinner paper for the little pieces just because they're not sticking particularly well. Maybe I do need that rubber cement sticky glue. But you want to be thinking about all the feelings either you're currently feeling in your grief process because it changes as the years go or as the days go, or that you've experienced in the past. So I'm going to be putting kind of all the feelings that I have felt over the years within my grief soup, but you can be putting anything that you would like to be putting in here. And there's such a multitude, and there's no wrong way to feel. There's no wrong way to feel. It's such an individual experience. And so this isn't a place to feel like, should I be feeling this feeling? I don't know. Is this the right feeling to feel? I don't know. Don't worry about that at all. This is not for anyone else but you. So now that it's dry and ready to go, I've got a pen and I'm going to be writing on here, what are the feelings that I'm feeling? So we're going to go with the easiest one, sadness. That's the easiest one, right? You think someone's grieving, they're sad. Sometimes. I'm going to put on here relief. This person was sick for a long time and they had a lot of relief to not be sick any longer. So, in your circumstance, I don't know how that is. You're going to be putting your things, just putting mine. Regret, might be feeling regret about some part of something. During the process, at some point, numbness, just not feeling anything. Overwhelm, things can just be so overwhelming at times. You just don't think that you can take more. Such a difference from numbness. Apathy, just kind of, I guess, goes with numbness a little bit, right? Like just kind of ambivalence. I have isolation that comes with grief sometimes. And let's see, bitterness, sometimes that's in there too. What do we have? So many feelings to feel. Guilt, that's part of it sometimes. Or anger, that can come up for you as well. There's so many different feelings to feel, but I hope that by doing this art practice that you've processed some of your feelings and been able to be okay with the fact that all the feelings that you have, whatever they are perfectly fine. And if you are around someone who is grieving, know that sometimes they just need you to sit with them while they have their bowl of soup. They're not asking you to drink the soup with them, but to sit with them and let them grieve for whatever time they need to grieve for. There's no designated time. And sometimes it comes up and you just don't know, oh, here it is out of the blue. And it's okay. It's perfectly okay. Just for fun, I'm going to grab a little bit of moon glow here, is the color of this watercolor, and add some shadow just because my paper is looking a little bit empty. I want to show that this bowl isn't just floating in midair, that it's sitting on a surface. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shadow on the bottom so I can show that my bowl is sitting somewhere. But again, like, this is your bowl of soup, your bowl of grief soup to process your feelings. And I hope that in time, your bowl of soup becomes a little bit easier to swallow and a little bit easier to share with others.